This episode of Profiles in Advocacy, our Season 3 focus of Connect4Life, the podcast, features one of our more inspiring and thought-provoking conversations about getting issues on the radar and making a difference. Chris MacLeod is a corporate lawyer in Toronto, a seasoned practitioner of international government relations, best-selling author, and a passionate voice for those without a voice. As host Melanie Taddeo, President and CEO of Connect4Life, learns, Chris was born with cystic fibrosis, which is a condition that once limited a person's lifespan to the years of childhood. But Chris has developed a personal system of getting through each day, one that's coupled with a passion and a know-how to get things done. Now in his mid-50s, Chris MacLeod shares his life philosophy of celebrating the moment, which has been assembled in easy-to-follow lessons in his book. Listen to Chris's approach towards dealing with negativity and skepticism, and hear how the simplest ingredients of passion, heart, soul, and focus can become the driving engine in making a difference in your life as well as the lives of others. Whether you engage in personal advocacy, corporate or legal lobbying, or nonprofit and charitable issues outreach, this is the episode that will put the gas in the engines of your efforts. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode for the links to contact Chris directly, as well as to purchase your own copy of Beating the Odds.
It is a great honor today to have a conversation with another changemaker in our Profiles in Advocacy. Today I'm joined by Chris MacLeod. Chris, how are you?
Really well, thanks. And thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. So I always like to start off by the guest introducing themselves because you know yourself best. So tell us about Chris. Who's Chris?
So, born in 1969 in Montreal, and at the age of 2, I was diagnosed with CF, or cystic fibrosis. My family was originally from out west, so we moved back to Saskatchewan. And I'm now a lawyer. I practice in Toronto, have my own firm with 2 partners in law. We founded the firm in 2010. And so I practice law. I live in the GTA, work in the GTA now, having come from Saskatchewan around 2000. What's interesting, and the reason I mentioned born in 69, is that with cystic fibrosis, when I was born in 69, life expectancy, I think, was 2 or 4 years old. Now I think it's mid-50s. And it's always, I've kind of ridden the curve on it. So when life expectancy went to 4 or 6 or 8, I was always just a year ahead of the curve, a bit like the curve in law school grades. But I've developed a philosophy and approach. I didn't really develop it, I've adopted it. Been around forever in terms of advocacy and approach to life, and wrote a book sort of outlining my philosophy of how to deal with a health challenge in a book called Beating the Odds, 11 Lessons to Overcome a Health Crisis. So I work full-time, practice law, and love it. Love advocacy in all its variety, shapes, and forms.
Wow. Okay. So first of all, I just have to say, what an apropos title for your book, Beating the Odds, because it's always interesting when the doctors say, oh, your life expectancy. And like, I'm sure that was holding over your head for quite a while, but now here you are showing them, that's just somebody's opinion.
Yeah. Well, and there's something to it. Like a lot of people have expired before they ought to have, as a CF. And so I acknowledge, like, reality is we're all going to expire at some point.
Very true.
And listen, there's lots of conditions and they can move that along. But my view is from the individual's approach, but just my approach. Like, don't believe everything you hear. Someone tells you you're going to expire. My view was always, okay, well, I don't accept it. If it's true and I'm taken out, I'm taken out. But until that happens, I won't acquiesce or fold. Let's just keep driving ahead and think of everything but. The doctor always said, Chris, normally I don't suggest denial is a good thing, but it seems to be working for you.
There you go. Now, for some of our audience members may not know what cystic fibrosis is, can you give us just an overall kind of synopsis of it?
Sure. So it's a genetic condition that affects the digestive system and the lungs in particular. So you have to take your pancreas doesn't work, so you take enzymes to digest food, and you are prone to lung infection because of fluid buildup in the lungs. So what typically has strikes and is the terminal piece of it is the lung infection. Repeated lung infections damage the lungs, and everyone starts off 100% lung function. And with CF patients, that's dramatically hindered. So lung function is the issue. And once you get below 30% lung function, your option is a heart-lung transplant, or you might expire. And by the way, if you get a heart-lung transplant, you're really just switching one terminal condition for another, because while it'll buy you some time, and I know people who've had a lung transplant, it's lasted for 20 plus years. Usually there's some challenges and it might buy you 5 or 10 additional years, but it's still a serious condition. So yeah, it really, the essence is it damages the lung. You're constant. But it's just, you're born with it. Often they'll diagnose later because, or at least back in the old days, it wasn't diagnosed later in life. We now have newborn screening. So as soon as you're born, every child in the province is tested for a variety of genetic conditions, one of which is CF, which has been a tremendous advantage because I don't know when newborn screening started, assume in the past 15 or 20 years, maybe longer. As soon as a child was born, they're tested, and if they have CF, they can immediately start treatment. In my case, I wasn't diagnosed until I was 2. So that's the backdrop on what CF is.
Excellent. No, that helps, I think, for people to understand, because again, we're not all up to date on every single situation and people's, conditions or, abilities, that sort of thing. So thank you for giving that context. Now, what made you want to be a lawyer?
Good question. I was always interested in advocacy generally, advocating for anyone in any situation you may find yourself in. I like that. I enjoy it. And it's a great way to help people. And I just find I loved it. When you're passionate about something, you should go and do that. And so, yeah, I applied to law school, got in, and love every minute of it, frankly. I think it's a great profession. And so it's just interest. I loved it and still do.
That's
25 years later.
And what type of law do you practice?
Commercial litigation. So all forms of business dispute. But, we do also have like taking on pro bono cases. And particularly with advocating for patients who have a challenge accessing innovative medication. We set up an organization called the CF Treatment Society, which was advocating for patients who needed access to life-saving treatment. Because when you're sick, and I've been in that situation, where you're in a hospital and life-saving medication may be available, doctors recommend it, but you can't necessarily get it, right? And so you have to be your own best advocate. And so we set up the treatment site, which is another whole story on advocacy. And you also need friends to work with you on it. Friends are family. But so, as I said, I was sort of always ahead of the curve. In 2012, 42 at the time, I believe. My lung function plummeted. It was around the 30% mark, or even just below 30%. And I got admitted into hospital of June of 2012, and was essentially there for 6 months, and on every form of intravenous antibody you could imagine to fight the infections. Nothing was working. After about 4 months, my doctor said to me, "Chris, good news and bad." I said, "No bad news." She said, "Well, you have a rare form of Delta 551 gene type. And there's a company in the US, Vertex Pharma, that has a treatment that's just been approved by the FDA 3 or 4 days ago. And your situation is so dire, they'll give it to you on compassionate grounds because you'll be expired by Christmas if we don't try something. We don't know if it'll work, but it might. And we need to get you on it. But it's not yet approved in Canada. So the Special Access Program of Health Canada in Ottawa will give you a 24 turnaround. They'll let it in on urgent grounds. Well, they never let it in. They never gave us an answer, yes or no. They wouldn't want. So I'm there for the next week. I'm like, what is going on? I'm looking forward to potentially trying this. We find out that they had decided to deny it, but didn't tell anybody, because the 3 conditions for a special access program at the time where there's no other alternative, you're imminent risk of death, and imminent risk of death, no other alternative, and there was one other criterion. I can't remember what it was. Oh yeah, and it's short-term in use. Well, this, as it's a gene modifier, would be long-term. It's not like a chemotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
So we started lobbying. I started lobbying or advocating for myself. I thought, geez, my gosh, I'm a lawyer. I should be able to advocate for myself. You get into a hospital. That's the problem with the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you become almost, you're focused on illness too much, and you become institutionalized essentially, and it happens quickly. You could be there for 3 or 4 weeks, and they bring you your meals 3 times a day. They won't even let you walk around unless you're in a wheelchair between floors. And it's so easy. You've got to constantly fight the risk of getting an institutionalized mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started a mass lobby effort. And after about 2 weeks, the Minister of Health federally intervened. And I was given access, as were 3 others. And within 10 days, my lung function doubled from 30 to just under 60%. I was off, and I was on 4 liters of oxygen a minute. I was off it, walking up and down hills, jogging. Shocking. I hadn't been at that level before. The other interesting, and one of the reasons why CF people are prone to infection, you can't digest your food. You have 6,000 calories a day, barely keeping on any weight. So when your weight's down, you've got an infection. It's a spiraling down effect, right? You don't have the resource nutritional to fight it. And so you eat more, you're sick, and it's just a vicious circle. Along with the increase in lung function, my weight, which had never been above 155, broke 160. So you then have the resources, natural food intake, the nutrients to fight infection. So it was a double win. And but as soon as I got out of the hospital, I thought, oh my gosh, I better call the assistant deputy minister and in charge of the drug program and let them know there's an incredible drug, a treatment that could really help. And here's my story. Well, they wouldn't speak with me. They said, we don't speak to individuals. Well, that's crazy. I've got some positive information. I knew nothing about how the system worked, by the way, because every medication I'd ever needed, they were very inexpensive, pancreatic enzymes, and some antibiotics to fight infection. And so I didn't realize what a complete black hole the system can be.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, well, we don't meet with individuals. So I said, okay, well, I created an organization called the Canadian Cystic Fibrosis Treatment Society that day. Called a couple of friends. We set up this not-for-profit. I wrote back and I said, well, I'm now the national chair of the Treatment Society. Would you meet with me now? No reply.
Oh, gee.
So I said, okay, well, there's that's odd. And that was 2012, I believe it was, or just 2013, shortly thereafter. And then started a long campaign of about a decade to get access for everybody to these what are called gene modulators, CFTR treatments for cystic fibrosis patients that are game changing. Hospitals are now, we have everyone in the country has access to gene modifiers. They're expensive. Wow. They cost a couple $100,000 at market price, but they empty the hospitals. People are living full lives now. And so we sued, kind of class action. We litigated and advocated. Advocated in the courtrooms and in the public square, and we litigated in the courtroom. And the government eventually came up with a deal through the Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical Alliance, negotiated between provinces and the pharma company. And now everyone can get it. But it was a long uphill battle.
But this is amazing to see that advocacy, although a long journey and hard work and many layers, does work and make a huge impact. And congratulations, what an accomplishment. And, I think a lot of people may not think it's possible because, like you said, all of the red tape and the loopholes and the different things you have to jump through to get it done. But what kept you persevering, keeping at it? What was the why behind your efforts?
Well, two parts. The first, let me say, it was not just me, it was a huge group effort. So all patients getting together, and the health charity CF Canada got involved. There was a new group of patients set up called CF Get Loud that was really loud in speaking up. What kept me going, and we sort of had three groups working on it. The health charity, CF Canada, CF Get Loud, which was sort of a grassroots movement that got loud and had all patients working on it. And our treatment society, we were I'll call it like the Navy SEALs. We had to be literally pinpoint strikes where necessary to make sure that we kept things moving. Why? Because, listen, it's like if you're on a ship and the ship's sinking, and you get to shore, you've got an obligation to get everyone else off that boat. Like it'd be something that wouldn't be right. Can you imagine? There's a house fire, a boat sinking, and you get off, you get out, and you just walk away and have a cup of coffee.
Yeah,
it's just not doable, right? You can't let that go. I went from literally, lying at like literally death's door to walking up and down a hill, no oxygen. I went from 4 liters of oxygen a minute to alive and well.
That's amazing.
So, there's certain things you just can't let go.
Of course. And
drives down.
So look at all of this. Like, let's break it down. So you've got self-advocacy. Obviously, you have the community grassroots type of advocacy where patients are advocating. Then you have the healthcare side of it, and then you have the legal side. So advocacy comes in so many different shapes and forms, and that's what this segment's all about. But touch a little bit about the differences, in your opinion, of these different ones from your experience.
Got it. Okay, so there's a role and a place for health charities. They raise money to do research. In my experience, and they'll tell you that we're focused on, at least the one experience I've had with generally, we're fighting for a cure. They want systemic change. It costs millions of dollars of research, right? To start finding cures, fixes, conditions, treatment. They don't tend to want to get into individual advocacy, advocating specific patient and their need. And that's fine, but somebody has to advocate for themselves. And this book I wrote, one chapter I call it, Be the CEO of Your Own Health. You have to be in charge of advocating for yourself. Now, sometimes you're literally sick and tired of being sick and tired. The reason you're in a hospital bed, your body's working 24/7 nonstop because the infection doesn't take a break. And it's hard to advocate for yourself. And so sometimes you need someone to do it for you. We set up the treatment society specifically to advocate for individuals whose doctor said you needed treatment. And somebody needs to write a letter for you, to speak up for you. And that's where we would write a letter, make a call. We've even brought a couple of lawsuits for individuals where we could try to move the dial for the patient. And so you've got individual advocacy, which individuals have to do for themselves and with their own family. Mm-hmm. If there's an organization that can just write up, sometimes the biggest thing you can do is write a letter. Let the system know, whether it's at a hospital, with an insurance company, or with the government, that this individual is not standing alone. They have their own. I always like the Navy SEAL analogy, because look, you got the president has access to a situation room and the Navy SEALs to go out and take on a task. Well, the patient needs to have their own situation room and their own SEAL team that they can send out to advocate and act on their behalf.
I love that analogy. It's perfect. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah. And ideally, at least, even if you're lying in bed, you can't get out, too sick and tired, mm-hmm. to adopt. I certainly needed to adopt. And I found in my experience, it's the best way to deal with it. Be the CEO. Know that you're in that hospital bed, okay? Everyone is on your team. Your doctor, the physio, the nutritionist, phlebotomist, you go through the list. We're blessed with a system, once you're diagnosed, at least in Canada, where you've got people that are there to work with you. I did a count, and over that many months I was in the hospital, 62, and I'm going right from the orderlies who take you around, staff to help keep the room clean, to deliver the food, to do all the testing. At least 62 people were directly in contact with. That's a lot. That's an phenomenal team. Mm-hmm. Well, we're in charge of leading that team, even if it's to offer encouragement, a smile, warm words of encouragement, keep the team bolstered. I mean, in the hospital, you get shift change, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Mm-hmm. My own approach to it was make sure they could welcome the new shift on, say goodbye to the previous shift until the next time they were in, and let people know I always got up. Now, I was afforded the possibility, because the nature of the condition, I could get up. You might truly get up. And I've been in that spot too. But insofar as you can, try to lead from the hospital bed. And that's self-advocacy. It's critical for the mindset. You want to get out of, I call it, for lack of a better word, falling into that institutional state. For me, it's somewhere where you don't want to be, and it's so easy. I've fallen into it. It's easy to fall into it where, they don't like you to move around too much when you're in the hospital. They want everything to be consistent and controlled, which is, that's their job. But our job, a person's job as a patient, is to self-advocacy. And then, so that's within patient, with the system. Organizations have various roles. Some organizations, health charities, raise money to find a cure, to do research development. Others need to do hard advocacy and push the minister, push the system. So in the CF Treatment Society, we were agnostic on who we would argue with. It might be the health charity, insurance companies, benefit plans, pharmaceutical companies, hospitals, potentially a doctor. If you need to get access to a doctor, you might have one opinion, maybe you need a second. So we would stand with anyone who needed to work within the context of CF treatment. And that was a long campaign. There'd be periods, like in any campaign, you got to play the long game. We might go 8 months or a year where nothing happened. But as soon as a moment came, we'd jump on it. And my dear friend, brother in arms, Doug Anweiler, was in the trench with me the whole time, as were many others, but Doug in particular. And everyone needs to have somebody who's their right hand that they work with, 2 or 3 gathered
Yep.
and move mountains, move mountains.
Absolutely. And this is it. It's not a solo show, although it's called self-advocacy. You have to have that team behind you. Now, you were
Mhm.
talking about the grassroots. I really think this one's important. I think you said get loud, or what was it
It's
called again?
is
CF
what
get
they
loud.
call
Yeah,
themselves.
I love
Brilliant.
that. Now, what sort
Oh,
of advocacy work did they do? Like, what sort of campaigns
okay.
did they do?
They were phenomenal at outreach to people with CF and their family members, and literally helping give them a megaphone, their social media in particular, where they were and lobbying and advocating to the officials that needed to be moved, parliamentarians, politicians, and telling their story. I mean, people move, the dial gets moved when you're eyeball to eyeball with someone whose life is on the line. Put it this way: if
Yeah,
someone has a car accident, we will send helicopters out to pick them up and have them flow on the orange helicopter, lands on the roof of St. Mike sick kid, and you'll do whatever it takes to make sure that person's life is saved. And when you're dealing systemically with Minister of Health, Deputy Minister, and the bureaucracy, it's harder, yet, especially when you're dealing with a chronic condition, uh, to get the attention, right? And you can only do it through anecdote, real
mhm,
stories of real people who have a need, and that need must be addressed. And the individual has to tell their story. Their family has to tell it for them,
yeah,
or members of the community who can advocate and see someone in trouble and help them up. And if any of us saw somebody trip and fall on the sidewalk, we'd immediately run over and help them up.
absolutely.
But when it's invisible or not as clear, because it's sort of shrouded within the system, it's a lot harder, right? It's a lot harder.
100%. And, I love this because I think this is something that a lot of people don't necessarily look at as advocacy work, sharing their story or helping others share their stories. And
Yeah.
with the power of social media, so much is possible now, whether it's on, the social platforms or even just with video or audio,
Mm,
like a podcast. It's so important and it's so easy to do, really. So that's
yeah.
great. Now, you have a different philosophy I really admire, and I'd love you to share where it comes from and why you think it's impactful. You have this sense of passion and possibility. It resonates from you. So tell us a little bit how that came to be and why you find it works for you.
Yeah. So when you go back to when I was young, you got a choice where you can say you don't have to accept everything that's told you about a condition. So back in the day, many years ago, it was only a childhood condition. Most people expire
Mhm.
before they were over the age of 18. So the first adult CF clinic wasn't done by Dr. Colas, my doctor, St. Mike, in 1993. There was no adult clinic because very few people lived to be an adult. So I thought, okay, it's not just me, but many others have as well. You've got to take the view that you don't accept limitations as to what. Now, listen, if you're going to die, you're going to die, but stuff happens. But you don't have to accept it. You can say, okay, that's the diagnosis, that's the prognosis, but I'm just choosing not to accept it. I had wrote when I was in the hospital on my wall, we have whiteboards and all
Mhm.
in each room. I said, I can't accept not trying, never, 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 ever give up 2 goals:
Mhm.
165 pounds weight and 65% lung function. Now, at the time I wrote that on the whiteboard, we had no idea that there was this potential CF treatment. I certainly didn't. It would get FDA approval. No, there was no sense of reality to that, what I wrote on the whiteboard. And ultimately now, I'm almost 190 pounds, which is actually unhealthy in itself, but I've got to work on bringing that one down. But I had never, and I was 42 when I wrote that, I'd never been over 160 pounds. My lung function, of course, had been 65, like years and years previously, but for years had never been above 50, 55. So I wrote down numbers that I knew were not notionally really realistic, but you got to get stretch goals. And even a couple of minutes ago, Chris, you're being really, you got to be more realistic. I said, realism's out the door. It may be, we just got to, so it's my approach is set goals, even if they're not realistic. Maybe they're met, maybe they're not. I still haven't hit 65%, by the way. I've been on this new miracle drug since 2012, have yet to hit 65, but a month and a half ago, I actually broke 60.
Well, there you go.
So
see, getting there.
You just don't know. It's not over till it's over.
No.
So my philosophy is don't buy into it. I don't get into, it's too easy to fall into a victim mentality and think, oh, I have this problem, this. Yeah, all true. It is, there are a lot of problems and challenges. Just don't accept them.
I love that. And it's a great approach, truly.
Yeah.
Now, we know that advocacy is a journey. It's not something that happens overnight. Yeah. It's not something that's instantaneously. So what advice can you give people going or facing barriers or going through something in their life on advocacy? What are some really simple takeaways you can leave with them?
If you can have an ally who's working with you on it, whether it's family or friends, you've got to drive the bus. You got to keep everyone motivated because, as we know, it can be a grind. It's not overnight and it's not easy. So you got to have, you got to be the cheerleader for others and reciprocal flow. You help cheer others on and they'll help cheer you on. So you got to be laser focused on whatever the objective is. Know it's a long play and do not think about a loss. Just erase it from your mentality. Assume you're going to succeed, put blinders on. It's unrealistic as everyone may tell you that is. Accept nothing else than success. And quite till you don't succeed, you don't succeed. Let someone else judge about that.
Right.
Right? Let it be told that you've left no stone unturned. And, you fight. You just keep going. You almost have to have enthusiasm. Don't let naysayers, and it's not, they're not negative. They're not really, they don't mean to be mean naysayers, but people have a tendency to tell people to think realistically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's like, okay, you're right. It isn't realistic to set a goal that, hey, listen, until the 4-minute mile was run in what was 1954, it was deemed to be an impossible task. But once it was done, hundreds of others have done it since. So right. You just don't know what breaks you're going to get. I got a massive break with this gene therapy. I had no idea it existed. And frankly, if it doesn't come along and you don't make it, at least you go down fighting, which is
absolutely. That's the way you want.
Right? I guess listen, life is phenomenal. There's no greater blessing than being alive. Mm-hmm. Enjoying fresh air. One thing you really appreciate is the little things. Mm-hmm. When I was less than 30% lung function, 4 liters of oxygen a minute, it was just getting up. I used to do every morning. I would get up, make the bed, get dressed, throw some water on my face, have a shower if you can. Even if after that you're so exhausted you have to lie back down again, do it. But at least you're lying on a bed somewhat made. And then you can say, okay, you got to create small wins for yourself. Even in the most simple thing. I would also unplug the IV, with the nurse obviously unplug it. I'd walk across the street to the coffee shop, literally just across the street, have a cup of coffee. And then you realize, wow, how blessed you are just to be able to breathe and walk is phenomenal when you can. Then you realize, oh my gosh, this basic thing, if you can do that, you're so far ahead of the. And then you
100%.
realize, so create momentum. It's all about finding opportunities to get momentum, getting up when you feel like you can't, getting dressed when you feel it's too hard, walking just across the street, and then set down a couple of goals, whatever they are. Other thing that I found really helpful to break out of that mindset where you get confined into focusing too much on your health. You got to get out of your head, get out of your way. There's that great proverb where this guy, terrible things have happened. He goes to a doctor and he said, look, what can I do? He goes, find a house, ask for mustard seed, and find a house with mustard seed that does not have problems. He knocked on the first door. He said, look, I'm looking for a house, look, beautiful home. He said, I'm looking for a home that has some mustard seed without any problem. I said, oh, got mustard, but look at it. Here's all the problems. My gosh. Put his in perspective. He started helping them. Go along, all of a sudden you spend all your effort and time helping somebody, gets you out of your head. One of the things I didn't tell a lot of people, not just keep it quiet, but I don't want to be talking about my own problem. And I help out others. So I'm an advocate. I still practiced while I was in the hospital, even though I couldn't really leave. You take phone calls. I'm lucky that way. Well, if you're on the phone helping and advising and assisting someone else, gets you out of your headspace of what your issue is. Best thing for you, in my view. Certainly for me.
Definitely. I would agree with you. Now, Chris, tell us about your book.
Yeah, so this is back in 2012, and I took this approach of, get up, dress up, show up, get up, make your bed, try and have a shower. Don't worry what everyone's telling you. Just focus on small wins, whatever they might be. And it might just be getting up, shower, make the bed, and immediately lie on top of it. Now you're lying on top of it fully dressed. Can't walk around. This was for me. I can't walk around like a hospital gown. And I could, the IV, right? I could kind of mostly get into clothes. And that gives you a small win. So beating the odds, it was when the doctor came in and he said, here's an intern. So, Chris, I got to talk to you about something. I said, oh, geez. It's the test. I said, don't talk to me later. Tell me now. I don't want to know. And he wait for a test result. He laughed and he said, well, no, I wanted to ask you about any tips. You see, you've got such a good attitude. I'd like to know what your recipe is. And so I laughed and I jotted down in about 10 minutes. I jotted down 11 points that culminated what and I hadn't really thought of it before. But here's what I prescribed myself, and I gave it to a sheet of paper. Well, then pen to COVID, when everyone was obviously concerned about health. CF is eerily similar to COVID. Affects the lungs, respiratory issue, fill up the respiratory wing, and you can expire, right? You lose lung function, you can't breathe. I remember there was a shortage of respirators. So I wrote down during COVID, I said, well, the other piece that was CF patients can't be within 6 feet of each other. We show up at the clinic, everyone has to wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart. Well, that's what we were doing during COVID.
COVID, absolutely.
And so I thought, well, I should just jot down, everyone's locked in. I said, I'm going to write my 11 lessons to survive a health crisis. And I'll just give you, this is what the head, I go into some stories under each one, but first, you got to have a positive attitude. It costs nothing. It's yours to take and have. And attitude really is everything. It's how you approach the problem. It's perspective. 2, you got to be the CEO of your own health. You can't sit there waiting for others. You've got to lead the charge with your doctor, with everyone, the hospital, healthcare system. You're in charge of your own health. People would come and take your blood, ask them what the test is, follow up and find out what the result is, learn about it, ask them what the alternatives are. If offer to help out, I would always say, I hope, how are all the other patients today? Is there anything, if you need me for anything, let me know. You got to really take ownership of the situation and try to lead. There's power in your response. You can't control what happens, but you control your response to it. Mm-hmm. Own that response and make it a positive one. Live in day-tight compartments. And this is critical because if you worry about yesterday, worry about tomorrow, it'll crack you. It's easier said than done, but you must live in day-tight compartments. Focus on what today. Don't think about yesterday. Don't think about tomorrow. You don't know what the heck's going to happen. Live in day-tight compartments. I always dream big, write it down. I went into that with you a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Get up, dress up, show up. Like literally, get up, dress up. Listen, you might be totally immobilized. You can't. Insofar as you can do it. I'm a firm believer, I practicing Catholic, believe in the power of prayer. I talk about praying strength and an anecdote with that, and others praying for you. You can feel it, it works, and it's a gift from God. Smiling and laughing. Honestly, when you're dealing with a health crisis, there's so much humor in it. It's not even funny. I can tell you hundreds of stories, very funny ones from the hospital. You got to keep things light. Mm-hmm. It's essential. And quite frankly, there's so much hilarious things going on. It's very funny. Never give up ever under any circumstance, and take a never better attitude and choose to live your life always. When you're out, you're out. But until then, do not acquiesce or consent being taken out. Listen, we all have different approaches. That happens to be the one
And it is so inspiring, honestly, Chris. Thank you for sharing that. And where can people buy your book?
Well, it was self-published, so they'd have to contact me. Okay. I think you might be able to get it on Amazon, actually. But yeah, they could email me, C MacLeod, CMACLEOD at Cambridge, LLPsandpeter.com. Yeah, so those are the lessons, and obviously I'm sold on that approach.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's doing great for you. So we appreciate you sharing it with us.
Attitude doesn't cost you anything.
It's so true.
There's a great study done in the US, I think it was, and they looked at all the times there was a conflict between the patient and the healthcare system. And they were talking about from limiting complaints, etc. And it was interesting that in almost all complaints, you get a bad diagnosis, you get a bad diagnosis. You got to, it is what it is. But it came down to kindness, which cost the system nothing. Most complaints you've had to do with the way people were treated, how they were told, the follow-up that might have occurred. And if people would just, if you insert kindness into all interaction, it would ameliorate complaints massively. But again, cost nothing. All the key ingredients and traits you need to at least face and potentially overcome. So at least if you're going to go down with a phenomenal positive approach to it.
Absolutely, such good advice, and I thank you for your time, Chris. I encourage everybody to contact Chris. Reach out. This book is inspiring, and also it just shows the different faces and types and shapes and forms of advocacy. And I look forward to another conversation with another inspiring changemaker in the next episode. Thanks so much, Chris.
You have been listening to Connect4Life, the podcast. Connect4Life is a Canadian-based registered charity committed to eliminating barriers for people with disabilities. Visit connect4life.ca and join us in helping people with disabilities become the champions of their growth stories.